when you take water from it, and that was what we grew up. There was no fridge then. And then eventually I think along the line, we had our first fridge in my home. But with time, with time when we now had grandchildren in our home and those ones didn't understand that they'll be putting different things. That was how we stopped. But children of these days, especially, so that's why there's also a difference between people living in the rural area and those living in the urban area, which has to do with the issue of migration. You know,
Yes.
wouldn't have come across this. But I'm sure those things still exist in the rural area, which you don't have. And even now, you don't even have most homes now, you have your free, but you have water dispensers, I know so many other ways of keeping your water. And so over time you discover that those items, and it's as a result of contact, and of course for those people who have left the rural areas to the urban areas, we talk about migration as well.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ma, for that insightful explanation on this. I don't know if Mr. Kayode is back. Okay, I think
So it's
he
maybe
had
it's having
some.
network issues.
Yes, yes, he has some network issue. Okay. Now that you talked about movement from the rural to the urban area, so how has internal migration within our state, within the Africa as it is within the continent, so how has this affected the usage of our languages?
As we said earlier, when
Yes.
people move, we have, high instances of migration. Now, because of the fact that we still have quite a whole lot of difference between our rural areas and the urban areas. In
Mm.
maybe what I would say civilized world, where you can hardly, where things are the way they are supposed to be. You have the basic necessities of life and you have employment and the rest of them. Then moving from one uh, area to another might not be that important. But because of the peculiar situation, Nigeria in Africa, you discover that people need to move because of the need for a better life in education, because of get gainful employment, better life generally. So people
Mm.
need to move. And it's something that is Lagos State or Lagos. I know that I can't remember the statistics now, but the number of people that enter Lagos every day you know, is something. People that enter Lagos not to live, people they have entered, they are going there to stay every day. So yes, internal migration is something that's especially to the urban areas. If I take Nigeria as an example, Lagos, especially because Lagos, you have Abuja. It seems Lagos is a little bit more cosmopolitan. I don't know which word to use now, or maybe freer or easier to live in. So you have people going more into Lagos. Then Abuja, which is our federal capital, I don't know how friendly it is. The low income, but of course, we also have areas where people can stay. So you have internal migration, and then Africa. I know that Nigerians travel a lot, to other parts of Africa. And then you also have people who are also going out to outside of the continent. You have that. And all of this, affects the language that they use. End of the day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. You just reminded me of the Japa slogan. We call it Japa here.
Yes, yes.
I think that's
That's
the
the
Yoruba word, right?
that's yes, that's the in thing now. You have Japa syndrome where people are I don't know, it's something that is here, and I don't what I've always said is that wherever you feel you, you can make life, if for those that are comfortable going, it's okay, you know. Okay, at the end of once you are going legally, and that is talking about that is one major difference between migration and immigration. As an immigrant, if you are going legally, you have done everything that you are supposed to do. It's not as if you are going to get there and then you are going to begin to struggle. You know,
Hmm.
it makes a whole lot of difference. For those of them that have gone now, I can say that they are taking care of social welfare of the people back home. you know, taking care of the social welfare. I was telling somebody recently, I said, see, don't say that you have seen an old woman that cannot travel now, because so many people, so many of these mothers back in the villages are they are also, you see them in their winter jackets and the rest of them in the cities of Canada and London and the rest of them, because of the fact that their children, are over there. And of course, when you look at all that, you discover that those are the realities of life. As it's
Yes, it is. Now that you talked about immigrants, let's hear from Coyote. I think he's back. Can you hear
yes,
us? If you can, please,
you're
please.
welcome back.
Hello. If you can hear
It's,
us, please unmute your mic.
it's muted.
Um, I don't know if you can hear us. Please, if you're trying to speak, you can unmute your mic. Okay, we are going to get back to him. So when people move, I mean, in search of better opportunities, usually everybody needs better opportunities aside where they are currently. So when they move, do they like leave their language behind, or do they move with the language? Because it seems like when people move most of the time, they don't the language is not passed on. Like if people move, most persons get married, get children, most times the language is not usually passed on, especially if it's um language spoken by smaller groups. So what do you think are some of the challenges of passing down these languages in diaspora?
Yeah, when people move, when people move, they move with their languages. I know that, they move with their language. But of course, by the time you get there, the dynamics of, the situation that you find yourself over there will make a whole lot of difference. But I know that when people move, they move. And then it depends. It depends. We have people who are here, who are in where their languages are spoken, and their children cannot speak the language. And so you know that for those people, whether they are here or there, the same thing will happen. And I have instances of people who are, outside, and even their children speak the language perfectly. So whether it is in Nigeria or outside, wherever the diaspora is, you will classify the local diaspora and then the international one, wherever it is, it depends on the individuals. But then I think we can be sure, maybe the first generation, by the time you now move to the second and the third generation becomes an issue, because you, as a parent, you have grown with the language, and then you try to pass the language on to your children. Maybe that's the first generation, I think. It's possible, but by the time others come, and then you start talking about intermarriage and so many other things, it becomes difficult. But I know that there are some cultures that are very good at doing that. people here in Nigeria, I know that wherever the, I think the most guilty of the languages or the tribes we have in Nigeria of this, the Yoruba people, it seems we are not really passing our languages onto our children. But I know that Igbo and Hausa, they are trying. Wherever they are, you still see that uh, the children still speak. And then, apart from the language, you still try to pass on the culture, the food. In fact, one thing I discovered recently is that these instances of Japa has really, opened doors to vendors in Nigeria that, sell food abroad for people over there to eat. And of course, I think one way of keeping in touch with the people at home is, when you eat the food and then you try to use the language. But yes, when you move with the language. Then that depends on how far. It depends on how far you are able to maintain it. But I have seen families, I've seen people, and then you now have cultural centers, you have language learning, in different ways of making sure that the languages are kept alive. I was involved in a language teaching, language learning, program sometimes ago, and even in my own dialect too. There is also an effort to see that we continue to use our dialects because just as you have the larger languages, you also have the smaller languages. You have the dialects. You have the languages, big languages around, and then even within languages too, where you have dialects. For example, Yoruba, there are so many dialects of Yoruba, and for so many speakers, people are gravitating towards the standard form. And we know that the standard form, as important as it is, the dialect is also very, very important. Presently, I'm doing something on the you know, dialects of Yoruba, where we look at the different dialects because we discovered that dialects are very, very important. Dialects are important. They are key to the sustainability of any language. Just as we have the forms for the standard, we also have the forms, the dialects. So yes, people move with their languages, but being able to sustain the languages now depend on the dynamics of where they are and what they actually want.
Thank you very much, Prof. I would agree with that, but maybe partially.
Okay.
Yes, because as a speaker of, okay, my language is not like Yoruba, Hausa, or Igbo. Yes, for these languages, yes, I think the parents are very intentional, and I think it's also the case with other large language families in Africa. But when it comes to like smaller language groups, languages that have just few speakers, for example, my language is just spoken in a local government in Nigeria. So most times people that speak these languages when they move out because already within here when they are in their home country or in the environment where the language is speaking, most of them don't have, would I say, this sense of pride in this language. So they feel the language has no economic value. And because I heard when I was still in uni, a student told me that what's the essence of speaking her language? I think that was a Calabari speaker. So it's not a popular language as well. So people like this prefer to speak bigger languages that more persons are speaking.
Yes,
So
Frank, and
it's
that's
not
why I
much.
said that. That's why I said that the dynamic, depending on the individual, you
Yeah,
as a speaker of the language, you have, despite the fact that you might feel that it doesn't have anything to offer you, but you still feel connected to the language. Do
yeah,
you understand? You see,
yeah.
so that's what we are still saying the same thing. It depends at the end of the day, it depends on the individual. It depends on the kind of pride that you have in the language. And then again, there are some dynamics, that would affect the way you make use of the language. But I think to a very large extent, if you don't feel, even if you are where the language is spoken, if you don't feel any pride using the language, then definitely when you're out of the place, you will not use the language. You won't use the language.
Yes. Yeah, so it takes
Yes,
intentionality on the part of the
we have
individual.
some comments here. I don't know,
Okay.
maybe, yes, I think this is from Namara, that the original residence of the Limba was far north. As they migrate from the north to the west, another part of, the language becomes different from where they came from. Yes. And that is what happens. Yes, that is the truth. That is what in fact, when you look at the different languages we have, or dialects, there are different things that happen. Most times as a result of migration, when people move from one area to the other, and then they now have to where they are. For example, we talk about the Yoruba language spoken in Delta State. It's a Yoruba language, but along the line, I think as a result of migration, they are presently in Delta State, close to, surrounded by different languages. The Igbo, in fact, the local government where they are, is what is spoken there is the Igbo language. And then you have the Edo division, surrounding them. So we have different, when you look at the history. And at the end of the day, you cannot say that it is a Yoruba language anymore because of the impact that migration has. Of course, this has taken over, centuries where they moved from where they were to where they are present. And so definitely at the end of the day, discover that the language no longer uh, is no longer what it used to be. And at the end of the day, by the time you are going to classify, it will be classified as a different language entirely. Or maybe you talk about different dialects entirely.
Wow. So this language does it still have some elements of Yoruba in it? Or it's a
Yes,
okay.
yes, it does. It does. When you classify Yoruba, you have different classifications in Northeast Yoruba and the rest of it. So it's much closer to the Northeast, to Northeast Yoruba. You have elements of all those dialects spoken in Kogi State, in Ondo State, a kind of fusion. Then you also have a mixture of Igbo, and then some words from Edo or from Isha also.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof. I would
Thank
like to invite Gabriela. He shared something in the chat about the Limba language in Sierra Leone. Please, if you can hear me, you can unmute yourself. We'd like to hear more about this.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I just came in because I was sitting outside where the place was clear, but the wind is heavy, like it is about to rain. So that's why I come in. But I'm sorry you can get me clear.
Yes, loud and
But
clear.
yeah, so the Limba language is one of the origin, according to history, for Sierra Leonean languages. But they were the northern part of Sierra Leone and Kabbalah. So, but because the Limba, they are more of like farming, palm wine tapping, hunting. So they've been moving away from their residence for this. So when they move from one place to another, because of the other ethnic group, they'll be sharing boundaries. So like they get a lot of borrowed languages, borrowed words. So what happened? Their original language, the original Limba, they've been speaking. They will still speak the Limba, but it has some kind of difference from where they came from. So this has been going on up to this point today. People are still anticipating that people need to do research because they are understanding that there is another dialect coming in from the south. So when one person speaks from one dialect, you will understand each other, they understand each other, but the tonations are different. That tells you the language is different. So presently, we have 12 dialects of the Limba, 12. So, but within this 12, people are still saying they are suspecting that there is another dialect coming up, because you go to some parts of the country, you hear people speaking Limba, is not among any of the 12. So it's like the same thing is still happening. So exactly as Professor is saying, moving from one point to another might not change the language definitely. The only thing will happen, like the tonation, difference, this will happen. But this is what happened with the Limba language in Sierra Leone. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. So, so when people move, we tend to have, is this how dialects are formed, right? Can we say that when this happens, the dialect, like new variations of that language are also formed?
Yeah, that's how dialects actually come about. But you see, the thing is that even the language we speak presently, as I said earlier, you won't know that there are changes, there are differences. You know, the language I speak now is different from the one that my parents spoke, and it's different from the one that my children are speaking. But we will not know, because of
Wow.
there is a kind of there's a kind of continuum. It will take time. That's why when you do this, you talk about diachronic study and synchronic study. When you look at the historical, the kind of historical, uh, looking at, okay, how the language was maybe 50 years ago and how it is, now, and that is why we say that one thing about language is that it's not static. It keeps on changing. It keeps on changing. And that's why, you always say that no language is superior to the other. Once a language can meet the needs of the users, then fine. And because of, in fact, when you look at the language, because the way the world is moving now, it's so fast with technology and the rest of them. And your language would be able to, for you to be able to express yourself. So when you look at all the borrowed words we have brought in, or all the ones that we have tried to create one way or the other, you will see that because the world we are now is different from so many things that my children talk about now, I don't even understand. And most of the experiences I have now, if my parents were to be alive, I'm sure they won't understand because we live in different worlds. And living in different worlds means that we have to be able to express ourselves using our language. And so at the end of when you sit down, you look at it. Let's take, there is a text in Yoruba, all these those old texts written like maybe 40, 50 years ago. We have some Oboju there. When you pick those texts and you read, you will see that what the author wrote in those texts were things the way they were now. But there are things that people now we might not, I will understand, but people coming after won't understand because their experiences are different. So language is dynamic, and as a language user, the most important thing about language is that it can meet your needs. It can meet your needs. And that is the difference between, for us in linguistics, we say that for us in linguistics, we want to look at how language is, and not saying that, okay, this is how it should be. No. And so we are not going to say that we are creating new dialects now, but of course, we know that there are variations, but right in the dialect or in the language that we are speaking. Right in the language or the dialect that, that we have.
Wow,
Even English
that's
language, there are so many things, so many things that have happened in the past. Look at COVID. Look at things that happened after COVID. The world has changed, and the world cannot remain the same again. It can't remain the same again. So many things have come. Even this Zoom that we're using was in existence then, but it's not as it is what we have now. I remember there was a time it's not something common for you to say, you want to have webinar, want to have this, want to have that. No, but now it has become part and parcel of our world, So, and uh, that is how language is. Language is open, language is productive, language is dynamic. Language is dynamic.
Wow, thank you very much, ma. That's really insightful. So languages evolve over time, and yes, it is dynamic. But we need, I think, people of the older generation, our parents, need to have will I say, an open mind
Open
towards
mind.
this. Because if you
Yeah.
if as a young person, you speak the language based on what you're familiar with. They would say, what are you saying? This is wrong. This is not how it is spoken. So they have this
Yes. You see, I
most
think
persons have
last week or 2 weeks ago, yes, there is a project they are working on, a particular project on the translation of a Bible translation project. And I happened to listen to some of when they were having the lectures, the training workshop for the translators. And so I called one of the organizers and I said, you have to be careful. You have to decide the essence of this translation project. You need to decide the essence of the translation project because, I could see that the people were so passionate about saying, this is how we used to say this. This word is not correct. This word is not this. And I told you, I said, if this Bible that you are translating is not for the shelf, if you are not doing it because you want to document the language or because you want it to be used, then you have to make sure that you carry along the people that will use it, especially the youth, the young one. I have a dictionary on my dialect, and the dictionary I have presently is what I refer to as contemporary. Some people said no. But I said, what I have here, they are data collected from users, and what I have is a contemporary dictionary. I'm working on a general dictionary now that will have both the old, the extinct, the contemporary words. Because a particular word you will have like 3 or 4 different forms, that over time have evolved. You have the old form, you have the semi-old, you have the borrowed, and so on and so forth. And you have to take care of, and take charge of all those. And so when you talk about languages, yes, there is a whole lot of difference. But at the end of the day, I think that's what makes up the totality of the language. And we need to have a holistic, idea of what our language actually is, and not say, okay, no, this is not how it is. There's a hand up.
Yes, please, you can speak.
Yes. Thank you. So, just in connection to what Professor is saying, maybe something I will learn here because it is also challenging for me here in Sierra Leone. Because, like for me, we are seen as frontliners when we talk about languages. So they always like consult us, ask us. It is very challenging within the Limba, like when it comes in terms of translation, and even on radio programs, people always become jealous because of these many dialects in the same language, the Limba. Which language to translate? How are we going to do out of the 12? So this is very challenging, even when I write books with the Limba. Some people might enjoy it, other people will see themselves that they are not counted. And if I say to include all the 12 dialects, it is very, very difficult. So this is what I would love to learn from Professor, how you do it in your language in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You see, is a very serious issue that you have raised. Now, I will give you an experience that I have. Now, at the beginning of this, I said I speak the Owe dialect of Yoruba. And this Owe dialect of Yoruba belongs to another group that we call the Okun dialects. And what brings us all together is the fact that we greet using Okun, but our dialects are different, But there are all these, there are 6 of them, and they are all dialects of Yoruba. Of course, there are other dialects too. And then there's a project. The project was, there is no Okun language. We just have just coming together like that. And so we now had an Okun Bible. And this Okun Bible use the different dialects of Okun. I was brought in at the tail end, I did the proofreading and the rest of them of the work. But at the end of the day, we had issues with people that would say, just like you have said, this is not my dialect. It is this dialect. It is this. It is that. And nobody was actually ready to own it, except the particular group that had more. But of course, because as a linguist, I have an open mind, and I feel that, okay, if I want to read it, I can read it. Depending on the dialect I want to read, it's easier for me to do because I have an understanding which others don't have. And of course, when things like this come up, there are so many issues apart from language that are also there. You also talk about the fact, the issue of politics and the rest of them are also part of it. And so now, the other example I gave, now one of the dialects, they are now working on a Bible for that particular dialect, again, separate from that other one that we have. And so for as long as, because you see, even these dialects we are talking about, most of these dialects could stand as a language, or they could stand as languages on their own. They could stand as language because of the way we have brought them together. And so, sir, I think the only thing you can do is, it's a little bit difficult to, when you have different dialects, how close are they? If the only difference is tonal, because that's what we have in some dialects, we have tonal differences, or languages that are tonal or stressed, at the phonological level. Maybe if the language, if it is not toned, if in writing you don't do that, you don't put it there, maybe it will help. But in a situation where you have significant differences, it will be difficult. So the best thing is that whatever you are doing, is either you are working on, pick a particular dialect as the dialect you are working with or on, rather than trying to, bring everything together. So that at the end of the day, some people can own it. Because when you have a language, you have a dialect, it belongs to a people. It belongs to a particular people. And so when you now have something that nobody is ready to own, then there is a problem. I don't know if I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I appreciate this one. Thank you. I learned a lot from this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think we have another hand raised. So, okay, I think we are transitioning into question and answers already.
No problem.
Okay, Yoruba Diwura, you can speak.
Hello,
Yoruba,
good evening.
Good evening,
Evening.
Yoruba
Yes,
Diwura.
Professor, good evening, ma.
Good evening, oh.
I'm one of the students that come across of
Okay, oh.
of Lagos, because of Lagos.
Oh, okay.
Brother, ma.
Thank you.
I have a question, ma.
All right.
We noticed that over the years, most of our people that travel to overseas, probably from Africa, except from Nigeria, once they get there and they start raising children, they don't like their children, they forbid their children from speaking our indigenous language. Instead of that, they prefer speaking the foreign languages, so to say. So now, I don't know, what do you think was leads to because of these kind of problems? Because we notice that this affects us a lot. The people that study the language, they don't want their children to speak our indigenous languages. Now, so I would like you to shed more light now on this because thank you.
Thank you, Yoruba Diwura. We already said something like this before you came in. And the truth of the matter, as we said, is that whether you are here in Nigeria or you are wherever you are, it depends on the individual. That is one. Because we have people here. I'm in Ilorin here. Yoruba is predominantly a Yoruba-speaking community. And we have children here who cannot speak Yoruba. And you have Igbo, you have Hausa who are living here. And their children speak perfect Igbo, they speak perfect Hausa. So it's still the same thing. So it means that this same set of people, when they leave and they go abroad, their children will still speak their languages. They will speak Hausa, they will speak Igbo. But then we also talk about the dynamics, the dynamics of where they are. We talk about that, of course, because the children that are being raised will be exposed to, different cultures, different languages. But I know that if as a parent you are really interested, it's something that can be done. But as we said earlier, by the time you move from first generation to second generation, it's out of your hands. Because it now depends on who the person is. You have your children, you have been able to raise your children, you have been able to make them to speak the language. But by the time, you are no longer there, they are married, and then you have the issue of maybe intermarriage and the rest of them. And it becomes an issue, to be able to keep on, the legacy of speaking the language. But it's something that we encourage. That is why I'm sure that is why we have Yoruba Diura. I'm sure you are also trying to encourage people to speak the language. And I know that there are so many efforts now, language schools all over. You have different apps where people can use to learn languages. You have different radio programs, language learning programs on TV, on radios, and the rest of them, just because we want, to keep people to keep learning the language, that people should keep on using the languages. So it depends. It depends on the individuals. If you are here in Ibadan and you don't want your children to speak Yoruba, they will not speak Yoruba. Remember, we said that language is not genetically transmitted. It's not. The fact that you are Yoruba does not mean that your child will speak Yoruba if you have not done the right thing. If the child has not been exposed, and then children, of course, also have minds of their own. They could decide that I don't want to speak this language. There's nothing you can do about it, So.
Okay.
I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you, ma. Thank you, ma. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, we have another 100. Felicitas, please, you can speak.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Prof. I'm not sure if I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are audible, very audible.
Network is a bit erratic. Okay, I was listening to what you were saying pertaining to how migration has a ripple effect when it comes to the African languages. It actually took me to our Zimbabwean context. I'm from Zimbabwe. As it is right now, we are currently facing issues to do with linguistic hegemony, where you see that English is dominating over our local languages. Whenever you are in search of a private school or a school, there is always that tagline to say it's an English-speaking environment. This has really shifted the focus such that, the young parents or anyone is no longer interested in speaking the indigenous languages. They tend to perceive it as, just a language that does not have any opportunities. So, I'm actually admiring that you actually have these different initiatives that you have to encourage people to learn or to use the indigenous languages, which is quite different from us here in Zimbabwe, because people are moving, people are migrating. I even tried pitching that we have just information put in our local languages at a local university where I work, and I was simply told that if we put it in the local languages, then what? So this issue of language and migration is something that is causing a lot of havoc when you are this side down south, because people tend to view our local indigenous languages as being useless. They don't really have that opportunity, that access, given the nature of our economic instability and issues, which I think maybe that's why it's actually causing challenges for me to get funding, because I wanted to do something that has got to do with access to justice. I have a background that of being a former court interpreter, and I've seen how people face challenges when they are within the litigation process. So as it is right now, I really want to do something to ensure that the locals, they have access to justice. If I tell you, like in Zimbabwe, we have the Judicial Services Commission. As it is right now, they have an information system. It's purely in English. And they are saying that during the litigation process, you can actually follow the proceedings of your case. You can actually see the stages. But hey, the end user is accessing that in English. So you can actually see we are still colonized in our perception and everything. And when you were saying all that you were saying, and I was like, wow. So this is what I have to share with you.
Yes, I think the problem is not peculiar to Zimbabwe. We have that too here. But I just want to tell you that whatever you can do, no matter how small, no matter how little, please continue. Please, most of the things I've been doing, it's just as a result of the interest I have. So please continue doing what you are doing. No matter, with time, it will look at what Franca is doing with her language. She has really, I'm always happy. I'm always happy seeing her. I'm always happy with seeing what she's doing. And it's just, she's just taking, no matter how small or how tiny the step is, definitely when you take a step, you are not where you were. So please just continue. Just continue with time, with time, it will be appreciated. We are still somehow, I don't know, maybe emotionally or whatever Kuluna is, as it were, because of until we can begin to use our languages. I believe strongly that the underdevelopment we have in Africa is as a result of the fact that most of us are still not using our languages. When you talk about, when people speak English, as a linguist, I don't condemn any kind of English. Once you're able to express yourself, and I discovered that so many destinies have been shortchanged as a result of English. I was telling someone recently, I said, not quite long that I understood. I am not good at maths, but I discovered that most of those concepts I didn't understand. And so when you don't understand the concept, how can you understand what they are talking about? But I believe if we're taught using our native languages, we have a higher level of understanding than what we have now. But unfortunately, we are still far from there. I don't know when we'll get there, but I know definitely with steps that you are taking, with steps that I am taking, with steps that we are taking today, we'll get there somehow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
We are looking forward to that time when our languages will be used in schools. I think was it in 2022 the Nigerian government drafted a policy for language use.
Yes, there's a policy. Yes, there's a policy.
Yeah, but it hasn't been implemented.
The policy, we have policies. Implementation is usually the problem. Implementation is a problem. You have policies, we have policies, but implementation is a problem. So little steps that we take will, at the end of the day, I believe will make will make a whole lot of difference. We have the policy, but implementation is
Okay. We have two hands.
Yes, we still have two hands up.
Yes, then Yoruba Diora, you can speak.
Okay, hello, ma. Hello, ma.
Hello.
I want to add few points to what Professor just said now. Because at Yoruba Diora, what we do at Yoruba Diora is we organize competitions in our indigenous language, Yoruba language. We organize different competitions. And we also publish books. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I said at Yoruba Diora, we organize competitions in Yoruba language. for primary schools and secondary school pupils. So, and we also publish books for them as well. Now, one thing I observe is that since 2017 that we've started Yoruba Diwura, we do organize competitions and we write companies, our indigenous companies in Lagos, precisely. But none of them have ever supported us. We are only doing all these things out of the interest and the zeal we have for our indigenous language, which is Yoruba. So I don't know why it's happening like that. Now, another thing is that we publish books. Whenever we take our books to schools, what we hear from parents and schools is that we cannot buy Yoruba language at that rate. Is it not ordinary? Is it not ordinary Yoruba language? Because they don't want to buy Yoruba language the way they buy textbooks, English textbooks, and mathematics, other books. So it's really affecting we that we are into the business. It's affecting us. So, but the only thing that just kept us going is the zeal that we have in the language. So it's really affecting us, but we'll keep on moving. We know that one day, everything is going to get better. Thank you.
Definitely. Please keep on doing what you are doing, Yoruba Diwura. Please keep on doing it. One day we'll get there. At least that they are not referring to the languages as vernacular anymore. Yes, Adetunji.
Yes, Adetunji, you can speak.
Hi, good evening, Prof, and good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Okay, so I just want to clear a point with what Yoruba Diwura said earlier on before this other one he mentioned, and also say what I feel so far. He said something about people in diaspora that they do not like their children speaking the Nigerian language, particularly their traditional languages. Well, it is vice versa. I need it to be clear that, and thank God, Professor also stresses that. So even those in Nigeria still don't even encourage their children speaking Yoruba language. Well, what the case is like is, why I'm particular about this issue is that in my own profession, I work with the children basically, and children's education and children's migration. So I did a dissertation on effect of migration on children, young children. What are these problems they face? What really affect them? And to be honest with you, language took a toll of my research, about 60% of what really affects the children, because it boils down on them that they need to study other languages apart from the one they were born, the one they were having naturally from their home country. They need to start learning it, and they need to acculturate themselves with the new environments. But language was one of the major problems they're having. So now, to explain more to Yoruba Diwura, what I'm trying to say next is that in diaspora, what the children face is that where they are, they mean, for instance, they say in Spain, France, and Netherlands, where English is not even a major language. These children need to learn all this language for them to be able to cope in school as well with other children. Learn the national anthem as well. You understand? So this is what really affects them. Not that the parents do not want them to learn their language. We have parents in the diaspora that really want children to understand the language, that they do so much, they put so much effort. They're willing to buy your books, no matter the amount you sell it, just to help the children here. So that's just my own point on that. But then another problem is, I don't know why we don't really appreciate our own products. Why people in Nigeria will say how much is a Yoruba textbook or thereabout. It's so sad. Thank God for the likes of the, what do I call it, Ebi Folorunsho, and the project they are doing. Really appreciate it because it goes so well and goes so far in helping people in diaspora and teaching people using the cartoon, using comics and all that. So that has been helping a lot of families also in diaspora. So I feel that what people can do better by doing what? By encouraging what we do, the Nigerian made, the African made, not Nigerian, so to say, even Zimbabwe, Kenya, Ghana, and every part of Africa at large. So that's all I want to say for now, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. In fact, I really enjoyed your comments, and it's unfortunate that we don't value what we not easy. But then until we have a kind of, I think, reorientation now, and then we And the only way you can and make sure that our language does not go into extinction is when in diaspora. But we might not be able to do much for those people who are there, but the languages will be kept alive by you have the elderly who maybe they don't really have many youths around that they need to transfer.
Can I say something? Hello?
Yes, yes, you can speak.
Okay, thank you. So,
Hello.
excited to be part of this. So I was thinking, we've been discussing this, but what step? Because for some of us, to know that, yes, we appreciate what they are doing, everybody's job. There are people working on language, especially in Sierra Leone. But they are working in isolation. What strategies can we do, and how can we get more African people working on languages to come on board?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Problem we have is that most of us working on languages, we are just doing it out of interest, not because we are making any money or you have any funding or anything. No, it's all African languages, rest of them. And you'll be so surprised that when you get there, you hardly find. In fact, there was what I attended from Ilori, one from Ibadan, another person from Akumba. And then we now have two Americans who reside in Africa who were that we have. But you don't have most countries don't really have any government policies in place to say that okay, this is how this should be done. What you have that okay, we want to do this as far as a language that now also has something like that. But for most other countries, you don't really have a concerted effort, whereby people working on languages or even you have a roadmap of so what's meeting here today and what Franca and some other groups are doing there are things that will bring us together.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my network bandwidth is low. Thank you very much, Prof, for this insightful conversation and for answering all of the questions we've had tonight. And thank you everyone for joining in. Our time is fast spent. And just to add to what Prof and Bribila said, yes, a collaboration is one major issue we have in Africa. And I think it is important that we start collaborating, and that is why we have a platform like African Languages Conference. So if we come together like this and we have people who have ideas for similar projects, I mean, even if we are in different African countries, we can always come together and see how we can collaborate to move African languages forward. I shared a link to our newsletter in the chat. If you'd like to subscribe to our newsletter, we share language news, global language news, and opportunities in the field on our newsletter. So you can subscribe to stay updated on all of our programs and activities. Thank you very much for joining in.
It seems. Hello, Franca.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, I couldn't hear.
Oh, I was speaking. Sorry, I thought you heard me. Okay, we've come to the end of our webinar. I was just giving the closing remarks. Don't know at what point you lost me. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. You can stay updated on all of our activities on social. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and you can as well subscribe to our mailing list to get updates on our programs. We are looking forward to African Languages Conference 2025. Yes, so if there are any opportunities for collaboration, I mean, we can always come together to collaborate. Oh.
For this meeting. But it's quite difficult because when you look at the area of people that are joined, you have to use pidgin or something as a communicate. So the best way we could communicate is, and that is one thing that has been hampering us having someone said we should learn Kiswahili, Ubuntu. So you see, and then the Yoruba will say we should all learn Yoruba. Someone will say we should all learn Igbo. I can't hear anything. I don't know. The network is
Hello,
becoming.
can you hear me now? Hello? Can anyone hear me? Hello?
Franca, you said something about collaboration, but I couldn't hear the other parts.
Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me now? Hello. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, someone is asking about the difference between Ubuntu and Kiswahili.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
Okay, so instead of
organization. Yes, the name is Nduku. I represent Mbongi Ubuntu, and we're pushing for teaching Ubuntu all over where Black people, African people are.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
What they called Black people in the East African region. And so we are reclaiming are common all over Africa. So we decided this language that is uniting us, the best way to call it now moving forward is Ubuntu instead of Swahili.
Ubuntu. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Nduku. Can anyone hear me? Hello.
Network and seeing us again. So maybe the program is ending. I guess so. I might have to end the program on behalf of Franca since she's not here. So thank you, everyone.
Franca, share with us the last statement on the mailing list. She started giving statements, so let's end it with the email on the mailing list where everybody can read it.
And she might have to send it maybe to individuals at the end of the day since she's not here now. Okay, I think she's.
Hello, can anyone hear me? Hello.
Hope to see you again. Thank you for all you are doing.
Hello, Prof.
Survive. So see you another time.
Hello, Prof.
Okay.
Hello,
yes.
Prof. It's rather sad. It's coming to an. Me. It's rather sad. Now my network is fine.
Wow.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've probably done. Not probably. I'm sure you've definitely done justice. So it's a privilege. My cousin saw the flyer yesterday, and she was actually saying that you were a lecturer when she was in LAG. So thank you very much, Ma, for still the wonderful job you are doing for those of us who love language. So I shake Mama, and
thank you.
Yes, I would get across.
Yes, yes, we'll connect later. Thank you so much.
All right, Ma.
All right. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.